Hey everybody, it's Erik, co-founder, partner of Village Global, a network-driven venture firm. And this is Venture Stories, a podcast covering topics relating to tech and business with world-leading experts. Welcome to another episode of Village Global's Venture Stories. I'm here today with a very special guest, Kelly Hook. Kelly is Program Director of the newly announced On Deck Customer Success Fellowship. Kelly, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Erik. Excited to be here and excited about the announcement of this program.
Why don't you give a brief background? What is the program?
Yeah, absolutely. So On Deck for Customer Success is a community and really a brain trust of CS operators and top executives who are interested in improving the customer experience in SaaS. And I could talk a little bit about what it was born from, but the idea is really a highly curated community capped at about 100 that's a safe space for executives and C-suite CS folks to exchange ideas.
Yeah, talk about what was sort of the gap in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just got done being a head of customer success for the past 2 years for an awesome startup in San Francisco. And I came into the role from a non-traditional customer success background. And I know a lot of my CS colleagues are in the same boat. And so that means when I stepped into this role, which was a huge opportunity, I immersed into the customer success community and into reading books and trying to find standardized approaches that I could apply to our startup, frameworks and models that were applicable. Incredible communities out there, Gain, Grow, Retain, like Success Hacker. There's some awesome CS communities, but I found that those approaches were a bit broad. And I was looking for some more vulnerable and safe spaces where I could share maybe things I was confused about and also even share some examples of assets I was building and really get more feedback and idea exchange with people who are also leading teams and scaling programs and a little bit more of a senior CS audience. So that's really the onus of the program. It's focusing on those senior CS leaders and ensuring that there's a space where the content's not going to be publicly shared. The speakers aren't, having their sessions broadcast broadly, and we can actually all exchange stories and examples of lessons learned and build out some frameworks that work. Yeah,
totally. Why don't you give a bit of your background in terms of how you got into customer success generally?
Definitely. So I've been in San Francisco the past 10 years. It's focused on the emerging technology space, largely in software as a service. I started out at a company called Prezi. Hopefully everyone remembers the days of Prezi. I still think it's going to be relevant and successful, but it's a presentation tool. I was their head of global comms, and that's the first time that I really started realizing the importance of the customer experience. And at Prezi, we just had a fervent user base, and I was really familiar with the product. And I realized that if you know your product well and you really love your customers and they love your product, there's something really magical that happens. And it doesn't feel like you're working. It feels like you're helping people. And that's how I fell in love with the idea of customer experience and customer success. I ended up leaving public relations and comms and went to IBM Watson, where I led their client engagement team, focused on executives in the Watson applications. And then eventually ended up at this supply chain company I was just at called Orderful, where we were taking a really outdated supply chain strategy and modernizing it, and just each time I learned the value of just caring about the customer. And as long as you're focused on that and focused on customer outcomes and the value realization that they're buying into when they purchase your product, good things happen. And I just fell in love with the industry of customer success, and that's why I'm focused on it now.
Customer success is gaining a lot of traction lately. Do you think everyone has a shared understanding of what customer success means?
Good question. Customer success, definitely an ever-evolving space, and it probably makes sense to give a little bit of historical context for those that aren't familiar. Customer success is really only 25 years old as an industry, and a lot of people conflate it with account management and customer support, which is being rolled up into CS in many ways. But it was really born back in 1995 through a CRM company called Vantiv. And I'm taking this from the Customer Success Association's historical recount. So I think they're accurate on this. But the idea being that at that time, this company realized comp structures needed to be tied to customer goals in order to prevent churn. And it's really as simple as that. And they started realizing that putting people in the pre-sales and deal close cycle that, started asking customers, how are you going to define success and what do you expect from us? And then essentially just taking those goals that were defined in that session and making sure they're achieved, like checking in with the customer in 6 months, in a year, making sure the value they signed up for is being recognized. And that's really software as a service and subscription software. It was a requirement to prevent churn. And Salesforce is certainly the most famous company that took customer success to another level in 2005. That's really when customer success started being popular. Salesforce had a ton of churn happening at that time, and they realized they needed to create a whole department to figure out why people were churning. And they created the largest CS department in the industry, called it Customers for Life, and were focused on customer retention and increasing user adoption. And that's why the industry is heavy in Bay Area and like heavy in software as a service, because it's all about understanding the customers essentially renting your software from you, and at any time they could leave. So you need to be aware if they feel like they're not achieving value to prevent that churn.
Why is it a compelling field, and why should more people try to get into it, and who might be the right archetypes for people who might be good at it?
Customer success is the best field. I know everyone probably feels that way about their field, but I think what's really cool, besides the fact that it's ever evolving and very new, so you're almost like a startup in and of itself, just being in the CS industry, but everyone that's in it is empathetic. They're customer oriented. They just want to do good things for people and help people. That's why I love it the most. Like every time you interact with the community, you're like, dang, everyone's interested in just, being collaborative and getting things done. And then there's this whole other component of extreme business acumen and data analytics. In order to understand in the software world what your customers are doing, you need to recognize usage patterns. You need to bring in data analysis, problem solve in unique ways. There's a lot of operational components and communications and strategic planning. And I think customer success employs so much of, a breadth of skill sets that make it really interesting. No day is the same. And if you like customers and you believe in the product that you're representing, then I can think of no better field to be in.
Yeah. What are some challenges facing customer success leaders today?
It seems like from the communities that I'm in and what we're seeing in the publications, that customer success executives and leaders are struggling a little bit with the perception of CS in general. Some people think customer success is just customer support, which is oftentimes a component. But when you have that perception internally, it can be difficult to explain customer success ROI to your leadership. And I know presenting ROI is a challenge that a lot of people are constantly working on. You might have a person in the company who's a leader who's never experienced customer success before, so they want to know exactly how you're preventing churn. How are you expanding accounts, which is all very fair questioning, but that's just not a one-size-fits-all model at every company. So I think one of the biggest challenges right now is just bringing more awareness about what customer success is to the world broadly in software as a service, and then helping CS leaders to understand, churn prevention strategies and how to present that to your leadership. What are ways to get meaningful feedback from the customer and make sure that's driven into product improvements, and then how to communicate that to your leadership. And things like the onboarding journey. A lot of times customer success teams are actually responsible for developing the onboarding experience of those customers. And then also, how do you communicate that to your leadership? So that's one of the things we want to tackle in the On-Deck Customer Success program, is not just strategies and actionable things that you can do day to day, but then how do you also roll that up into a meaningful presentation for your company, to your board, to your leadership, to constantly make sure people are aware of CS ROI. Yeah,
that's really interesting. How do you recommend professionals grow in a CS career? How do you think about sort of evolution?
Yeah, I think it's not standard. Everyone's coming into the industry from different roles. Some have been in it longer than others, and that's something we're going to talk about too in the program. But a lot of people are heading towards VP of Customer Success, Chief Customer Officer, or branching out into more of a Chief Operating Officer role, since the role is operationally intensive. But it does seem that a lot of people, can come into a CS leadership position having had a range of backgrounds. You don't always have to start out as a CSM. So I definitely encourage anyone who's interested in the space, check it out. You might have applicable skills. But if you're a customer success manager, you're earlier in your career, you're learning to manage accounts, I think the trajectory is to then, if you're interested in people management, or maybe you want to be the top individual contributor, but, continue improving your data analysis skill sets, continue understanding how to have those business conversations with your customers and represent your company in senior meetings, and eventually work toward team management and see where it goes from there. But the world is your oyster in CS right now, it does seem like. And I think one of the opportunities in front of us and in front of CS leaders is to be able to define what are some roadmaps and tracks that CS folks can take, and where should they envision their career going. I don't think that's yet defined.
So when you talk about on-deck customer success, how does it differ from other programs that already exist?
On-deck customer success is going to be a really special place for senior executives in a nutshell. It's going to be a place where you can come and share your experiences and build those meaningful relationships that lead to actionable takeaways, of course, but are also providing some deep relationships that are available for long-term support and idea exchange. I think the challenge of current communities, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, is just broad reach, a lot of people involved, and then a lot of people can show up to certain meetings, anyone's able to access those meetings, and making sure there's just a community that's focused on each other for 8 weeks. You see the same people. You're getting to build those relationships and have those discussions. And then when these top speakers come in, it's also a safe space for them. As an example, one of our speakers, who's a woman I met when I was working at IBM, she's just a total inspiration for me. She's now the vice president and chief customer officer for IBM Watson for IoT. And she's also an Army brigadier general. She's a badass. And she's going to talk about how she presented customer success ROI to her senior leadership when she switched teams. And she's not just going to theoretically talk about it. She'll actually show us the deck she used, of course, with data scrubbed and no information she's not supposed to share. But it's not going to be a theoretical story. It's going to be a real practical example of a challenge she faced and exactly how she solved it. And I think that's what the community is short on. At least that's what I experienced when I was looking for content. So we're going to provide that, and then just the actual community itself, the people who are already involved, and then the people who will sign up, they're going to be able to exchange information with each other and pair up in ways we haven't really been able to yet, which is, pair with people who are solving the challenges that you're facing and vice versa. And also having industry specific segmentation and just really making the content relevant and the peer networking relevant. It's just not going to be broad. It's going to be pretty custom and hopefully feel like you're building long-term friendships. Yeah,
that's awesome. Maybe in closing, when you think about sort of the future of how customer success is going to evolve, what may you predict?
I think we're going to need to get together as a leadership community, and it's one of the benefits of having all these heads and experts in ODCS, and it's something I want to talk to the group about. I think customer success is here to stay. There's no doubt about that. And software as a service is just continuing to grow. And everyone who's in CS notices that over the last 10 years alone, just tons of communities have come up. There's a lot of interest in where this space is going. How are we going to define it? There's not a lot of standardization. So I think we're going to see every SaaS company having customer success now. I mean, 5 years ago, so many didn't have it, and now it's basically the norm. So starting to see that as a mainstay in every company, and then starting to see practical frameworks for how to onboard customers effectively, probably things around, reducing manual processes, but recognizing when the customer touch is important. And also asking questions like, do customers want us to always reach out to them? Or when you buy a product, do you want to not have any interaction with that product and the people in it? Lots of these types of questions are being asked now, and it's a really cool time to define what customer success means for software as a service, and making sure that the customer is always at the forefront of that thinking. So excited about this group in ODCS and excited to talk to them about that challenge and what's the opportunity there.
Awesome. Well, that's a great place to wrap. For people who want to learn more, we just launched, so check out beyonddeck.com. And if you go under programs, you'll see customer success. Kelly, thanks so much for coming on the episode and talking about the industry and the program. It's been really great.
Thanks for having me, Erik, and look forward to talking again in the future.
If you're an early stage entrepreneur, we'd love to hear from you. Check us out at villageglobal.vc.